Alright, let's get into this one. Why are LANs so important? And it sounds like a really obvious question. But it's something I think we need to just kind of remember and kind of look back on and really think about. So, for me, I started at an open LAN. This is also quite a lot about open LANs as well. Invitationals are great, but this community really depends on open LANs as well. And I think we need to make sure that we have a healthy, good amount of good open LANs for the next year, for the next coming years, because it works differently in Call of Duty, right? For Call of Duty as an esport, for me, it relies on LANs and open LANs more than any other. This is down to several reasons. One being kind of the peer-to-peer networking side of it and how it actually works with ping and host. And we all know warriors, right? We all know host players, that sort of thing. That, it kind of takes away from competitive integrity. Like, if I see a player or a team win an online game, I have to take it with a pinch of salt, knowing that the results could be wildly different at LAN. LAN being the most kind of competitive environment, fairness that we can bring together. So you have to bear that in mind. It also comes down to things like if there is such even a tiny, minuscule difference between players with connection and so on and so forth, then the reason that's kind of exacerbated, kind of increased in Call of Duty is because of the interactions. The amount of kills, the amount of gunfights you have to get into is outrageous. Hundreds of interactions going on in 10 minutes. Meaning that, if you're quarter of a second, point of a second behind every single time, or you're slightly off, it's going to actually add up a lot more than it will do in other esports. So for me, opens are so important. Not only that, but we're a very social community. I mean, there's a reason our social media is so big, because we're a very vocal community, very social, and a lot of this comes down to the big invitationals or open events. Like I said, I would not be here if I had not started going to LANs. If I had not started back at ECL 3 back in the Norbreak, that was my first LAN, and met a load of people, become very firm friends with them. It made me just kind of fall all in love with esports to a complete another level. Because I already loved esport, but I never understood how it was so social, how there were so many friends. As a lot of people kind of try to stereotype gamers as, reclusive in your basement sort of rubbish. Whereas anybody who's been to a good big LAN event will know that is not the case. I mean, I've got friends all over the world now, which I never would have had if I just stayed out of esports and away from LAN events. There's no way I would have had, maybe 20 miles from my home is where my friends would be, and that's maybe it. And that just kind of makes it more and more important. LAN is where players come to play. They come to win, and that's the difference. You have to make sure that if you're a LAN player, that's where you get that kind of reputation. You can do whatever you want online, but until you prove it on LAN, a lot of people won't kind of give you credit. They won't care. I've always said to new people who are coming into the scene, whatever you do, however hard it is to get a team, make sure you get yourself to LAN, because that's the goal here. And it's very, very difficult for new players. Don't get me wrong. I know how difficult it is. Funding, finding a team, having that team stick with people you probably don't actually know in real life. I was fortunate. My team was local. But this is the goal. Once you get there, trust me, you will want to go every single time. There are people who still go to LAN events, not even really interested in the esport anymore, not even interested in playing or, helping. But they go because of the awesome friends they've made and the people they know. So, like I said, there are two aspects of it. One is the social aspect, and the other, probably the more important one for Call of Duty, is that it is the great leveler. It is a fair environment. It does kind of balance out this small ping issues we have between, host connection players and warriors and so on and so forth. And it is, where you kind of know how good of a player you are. And the first few times you go, you may not be as good as you thought you were. And some of it will be pressure. Some of it will be, people play different on LAN. That's another thing. People do play very different. You see massively confident players go roaring in, and then all of a sudden, they get hammered a few times. Like, why is this not working? I've done this at home loads. So then they start playing passive. And once they start playing passive, then obviously they're not, getting the engagements enough. Their teammates are suffering, and all of a sudden, that's where the real difference starts to come in. It's not the big changes you make playing on LAN. It's the small mental changes that come into play. Because all of a sudden, it's a lot more pressure, and it's actually really quite important to get to that next round. So yeah, like I said, for me, this is one of the things that I'm really looking forward to. Like I said, I love a good event here. I'm an event person. I would just want to attend events all the time. So, like I said, it's so important for LAN events. I think people need to recognise just how important these tournament organisers actually are that throw these events. I know we give some of them a hard time. I know that sometimes it's not always up to, you know, the specification that the people at home want to watch or the people that are playing want to watch. But realistically, open tournaments and big invitational tournaments are so super critical to Call of Duty as an esport that, honestly, if we didn't have big open tournaments in a year, I don't think we would exist as an esport anywhere near this level. I would 10%, I would guarantee. This esport will not ever survive online for the reasons I've specified. But that's, you know, that's my point of view, and that's, I genuinely believe that. And there are, don't get me wrong, I'm not saying online is completely irrelevant, because it isn't. There are some great online matches, and we've seen a lot of that before. And you know what? The CWL is coming up. CWL is going to be huge for the esport. But at the same time, we all know that it's going to be great watching him for the next few months. And then, but when it comes to that kind of playoff, we're all going to be sitting there glued to our screen because it's at LAN. It's oh so more important. And then even the players will be sitting there going, well, they beat us a few times online, but we're fairly confident we can beat them on LAN. And that kind of sums up everything there. The teams who can lose online to people will go to LAN and be confident they can beat them. So, like I said, for me, I'm really looking forward to this kind of season. I think we've got great spectator mode in the game now. We've got some great esport features coming in. We've got a lot of funding. So I think this could be a massive year, but I just really hope that the open organisers really step up and we get a lot of them this year. More, not just for the pros, not just for, you know, the big teams, but just because for the community more than anything else. I really think that the amateurs and the intermediates really need to get to those events because it's where they get recognised. That's where a lot of players will get their recognition from. You go to an event, you do well, and all of a sudden your name is in people's mouths. And that's how you step up. It's happened for so many people, and for so many other people, just can't get that break. That's the breaking point. It's LAN. It's always been LAN. It's always going to be LAN. But yeah, but this is just what I kind of want to get off my chest here. I've seen a lot of people talking about it. You're right. I think Clay said we haven't had a lot of LANs this year, and that's, for me, it's a little bit scary. I'm kind of hoping we see a lot more. I'm sure. I think UMG said they got an event coming up. I think we've got a fairly big one in Twickenham going on. And so I'm hoping to see, you know, more across the pond, more back in Europe, big events going down. Hopefully, you know, some of the big organisers will step in. We didn't have an ESWC last year, apart from the big one at the start. We didn't have an end one. So I'm hoping we're going to see a few come in. There are a lot of organisers that can throw them. DreamHack tried to throw a big one in London. Let's hope that these big lands come through, because that way that gives us this great online portion we've got with the CWL, and then underneath that there's undercurrent of events hopefully every month. I'd go every month. I'd go twice a week if I could, and then we get to kind of see these players showcase themselves on the big stage, because that's where you kind of really get to feel how these players are playing. They're not sitting at home, you know, in their pajamas or whatever. They're actually out there, and that's the kind of the purity of LAN I'm trying to get to. But yeah, this has just kind of been me rambling about LAN. This is something on top of my head I wanted to kind of point out for you guys. But yeah, thank you so much for watching any of my videos that you have been watching. People at home who've kind of been contributing and stuff and saying they like my videos, thank you so much. If you give me a like, if you subscribe, I'll be more than happy. Let me know what you think on Twitter. Let me know what you think in the comments. I'm trying to reply to more people's comments on YouTube and on Twitter. Twitter I'm really quite good at. I'm not bad at replying on Twitter. YouTube comments, I'm still kind of getting used to going onto YouTube and replying to the comments and stuff, but you know, thanks for even kind of contributing to this. But until then, we'll see you next time.